Today, we're going to talk about what comes next for Bryson Graham and the Chicago Bulls as he continues to build out this new look Bulls roster. The draft is done. Wilson, Dailyn Swain are in Chicago. Nic Claxton is here, but the roster still needs shooting, and it needs an answer for big man depth as well. With free agency starting later on today, I am going to talk about my dream pairing at the two guard and the backup big position for the Chicago Bulls in this, and we're also going to talk about why there are a lot of Bulls fans that are still hoping that the Bulls can get Peyton Watson, but I just don't know if he fits financially or stylistically anymore for the Chicago Bulls with where we are. We're going to talk about all that plus more right after this. What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go and get into this content for today, y'all. So, the Bulls have absolutely improved their foundation with this offseason, what they did through the draft. Already, with the trade in Nic Claxton, they have improved their foundation by quite a large margin, but the roster is still not fit yet, right? Of course, Wilson and Dailyn Swain add size, they add athleticism, they add tons of upside to this roster. Nic Claxton adds that defensive anchor that many people want with the Chicago Bulls. And, while Nic Claxton is he's a starting caliber center, but even him, he has some things that he needs to prove this season with him getting back to hopefully that player that was in Defensive Player of the Year talk at one point in time. And my hope with Nic Claxton really just becomes down to, I think that Nic Claxton is one of the perfect examples of why a young player being on a team that tanks for so long, it really does change the mindset. I get it that we think these players are robots and that it shouldn't agree to them in a certain area or shouldn't affect them to a certain area. But I think when you look at it, man, it just, it does. And I think these guys are still human and you cannot act like it does not affect these guys. It does. And so, now, with that said, you look at that. Their biggest remaining holes for this team are starting caliber two guard, and that's if the Bulls don't feel confident in starting Dailyn Swain. I don't know. I haven't heard anything in regards to that. I don't think that's going to be determined till training camp. But even with that, I think the Bulls adding a starting caliber two guard and a two guard that would be fine coming off the bench if and when Dailyn Swain is ready to take over that two guard position. And they need to add veteran structure to this team as well. This team needs leadership and veteran voices. Now, I'm not like my brother Pat, the designer, who talked about Mike Conley being the one that the Bulls should sign in free agency, but I do think now it's about how Bryson Graham supplements the young core without blocking the young core. And there's a lot of things that people talk about in regards to that. Some Bulls fans, when Norman Powell came up, they think, Norman Powell's going to take away shots, but the spacing that he provides, anybody's going to get shots. Norman Powell's a guy that's only averaged 10 shots a game per his career. And I do think he'd be willing if the role is there. And, even with that said, there are going to be times where these guys don't have offense. Norman Powell is somebody who can generate offense. But, you need talent that supplements the young core, right? That when you look at either their deficiencies or how to make the game easier on them, that's what you want. That's what ideally you're trying to get done in this free agency period by the Chicago Bulls. You're probably not going to make the big swings. You're probably not going to look at somebody who drastically comes in and changes everything, right? But the Bulls do need an actual shooting guard, right? And I think that's a big part of here. Of course, Dailyn Swain could very well develop into that role, but I don't think Chicago should force it. They should provide structure for it, but you don't have to force it. Rome wasn't built in a day. And the Bulls have talked a lot about being on the ground floor. They're going to do it through development. They're going to go the long path with it, the route that AK never really wanted to. And while Swain has size, he has on-ball skills, he has the defense, right? But I think right now he's more of a tweener than a pure guard, and you're going to try to work that. Now, he can do some guard things, but there it goes. And you're going to need shooting around Josh Giddey, Dailyn Swain, Nic Claxton, Wilson, Modest Buzelis. You need shooting around those guys. And so this is why I think that a guy like Quentin Grimes becomes the cleanest fit, because he can shoot, he can defend, he plays without demanding the ball a whole lot. He doesn't dominate the ball. And while Norman Powell is kind of more proven but older, and he's going to be probably more expensive than Quentin Grimes, he's another guy that could provide some of that structure in that place as well. Then, of course, you look at other names. Guys like Luke Kennard, Tim Hardaway Jr., Bones Highland, even keeping guys like Anthony Simons and Nic Claxton or sorry, not Colin Sexton or Benedict Mathurin. Like, these are all guys that kind of fit that mold of what the Bulls need in a shooting guard to varying degrees, right? And these are guys that may not get in the way. Anthony Simons is probably the most ball dominant, where he's going to need a lot of shots. But guys like Tim Hardaway Jr. has played complementary roles. Bones Highland is a complementary player. Benedict Mathurin is more so another kind of long-term fit there. Like, I think Ben's looking to prove that he's a starter in the NBA for a long time. So the Bulls have options there. But I want to talk about one of my favorite options for the Bulls at the shooting guard position, and that's Quentin Grimes. And I feel like getting into my kind of pairing for this, Quentin Grimes and Jock Landale are my kind of perfect pairing for what the Bulls need in this free agent period. Let's start with why Quentin Grimes is one of the best fits for this roster. The balance of fit, right, with him being somebody that can shoot a career 38, I think, percent three-point shooter. The age of him being young in regards to that too. Role, he's a guy that can start, or he's very open with coming off the bench. Price, I think he's going to be a player that's easily like priced within the Bulls range, and he has two-way ability, right? So we're going to talk about it. He is actually a career 37.5 three-point shooter, which is really good. He can start or come off the bench. That flexibility is hugely important for where the Bulls are right now with Dailyn Swain. Again, Dailyn Swain may not start the season. Maybe he starts by the end of the season. Maybe he starts, a season from now. Like, all those type of things are there. If you sign Quentin Grimes to a 2 or 3 year deal, he can grow. His role can grow and change with the Chicago Bulls as the Bulls' need for him grows and changes, right? I think that's a part into that. He fits because he's a signing that solves a lot of that issue around it. He provides spacing for Josh Giddey, Caleb Wilson, Dailyn Swain, Nic Claxton, Modest Buzelis. He provides that you need in regards to that one. And while this young core has tons of athleticism, they don't have enough proven shooting. Quentin Grimes will provide that proven shooting. He played last season on an $8.7 million qualifying offer. And we'll talk about what the kind of salary expectations are for him, but he brings so much. A low-usage floor spacer, a point-of-attack defender that, again, not a lockdown defender by any stretch, but he is somebody that plays solid defense in that. He's solid in transition, which is going to be a big part of the Bulls' offense as well. And the thing that I love about Quentin Grimes that he does really well is attack closeout. And plus, it gives you kind of a bigger guard next to Josh Giddey, next to Trey Jones, and that's the thing that you like there. When you look at the potential lineups, a starting lineup of Josh Giddey, Quentin Grimes, Modest Buzelis, Caleb Wilson, and Nic Claxton going into next season, it makes a lot of sense offensively, right? Than asking another shaky shooter to start out there with those guys. The opportunity is realistic, right? Because as of right now, the Philadelphia 76ers are already over the projected cap with its max core as well. And, they have $11 million, roughly $11 million, and that's going to either go to Grimes or Kelly Oubre, and that's going to push them closer to that tax line, that apron line that they don't want to be at. So when you talk about the expected salary for Quentin Grimes, right, I expect him to land somewhere between 3 years and 42-ish to like $45-ish million, or 4 years at about $56 to $72 million. Basically, you want the range of Quentin Grimes' contract to be between $14 million and $18 million. That's slightly below the mid-level exception and slightly above mid-level exception money, right? And I think if his market is a little bit softer than expected as well, you get closer to that 12 to 14 million annually, and that's great. If you have to outbid other teams that need shooting and depth as well, that's where you can get closer to maybe about the 16 to 18 million when you look at that, right? But I think for Chicago and where the Bulls are, I'd be comfortable with the $14 to $16 million range. If you can stay in that range for him, I think that's really good. If it starts getting above 18 million, that's where I'd start being a little bit cautious unless it's a shorter term deal. But I think that's why Quentin Grimes does fit this team and what they need. Then you look at Jock Landale, not a star by any stretch of the imagination, but he's the exact type of backup big that you want on a team like the Chicago Bulls, right? I think Nic Claxton, he gives the Chicago Bulls defense, switching, rim protection, vertical spacing as well. Landale gives you a different flavor. Now, I want to be clear in this. I think if Jock Landale is the signing, you still keep one of Nick Richards or Zach Collins to go along with that, and then you have a 3 big man lineup that you could go to with depending on what your look is, right? But I think when you look at Jock Landale, backup center size, he sets really hard screens. He knows how to pick and pop. He shot the ball at 38% and sometimes, I think last season, 41% shooting, right? So again, he can pick and pop, a different look. He plays very physical. His rebounding rate is really good. And on the short roll, he understands how to be a really good passer on the short roll. He's a center that plays without clogging the lane, but still gives you the type of physical presence that you want from a center, especially on this roster. And I think with this too, we know that Dailyn Swain and Caleb Wilson are getting real minutes on this team, right? And they need bigs who do not shrink the floor. Jock Landale does that. The 10.6 points, 5.7 rebounds last year while shooting 38% from three, while that being a career high as far as attempt value as well. He has shown himself that he can be a spacing big. Now, you don't want to make him a three-point shooter. If Billy Donovan was still the coach, he'd try to make Jock Landale a three-point shooter. That's not what I'm saying. But you have a center that's at least a threat to stretch the floor out there. It makes a good balance there, right? So it keeps Tiago Splitter from overusing Nic Claxton while still giving Caleb Wilson more flexibility as well. And you don't have to force Caleb Wilson or anybody else to play a small ball center unless the matchup makes sense there. And because of Landale's ability to fit that role, and while Caleb Wilson develops and these other players develop, and even Noah Essengay as well. I know a lot of people with Noah Essengay being over 7 feet tall now, they think immediate center. He's going to have to put on some weight, but it forces you not to have to do that. So then at that point, your second unit, right, looks like Trey Jones, Dailyn Swain, like Leonard Miller or Noah Essengay, right, that come into that, Jock Landale, Jalen Smith. You have a nice balance of backups in that point in time, too. So I love that when it comes down to the spacing development is really huge for this Bulls team as well, because like we just said, a big need for this Bulls team is what? Shooting and spacing, and Jock Landale can provide some of that as well. When you look at the expected salary for Jock Landale, I think you can probably get him for 2 years, $14 million. That's $7 million per, right? I'd say stay between $7 and $9 million per for Jock Landale. It'd be there. If the market does get aggressive for him and it pushes towards $10 million, I think that you can convince yourself, but that may be where you want to look at some other pieces as well. But I think Jock Landale makes a lot of sense for the Chicago Bulls, both salary-wise, role-wise, fit-wise, all those type of things. So then the question becomes, can the Bulls realistically fit both these guys? The Bulls have around $30-ish million in cap space with everything done, right? And this is one of also the most financially realistic options for the Chicago Bulls here, right? The Nic Claxton trade worked because the Bulls absorbed his $23 million salary in whole, right? And with the 11.7 points, 6.9 rebounds, 3.7 assists last season, that was a worth of investment. If you're able to get Quentin Grimes for between 14 and 16-ish million, high end 18, the absolute high end, and Jock Landale between like $7 and $9 million, you're looking at 21 to 27-ish million dollars between the two of those guys. That fits within the cap space of the $30 million for the Chicago Bulls. It leaves you enough to also re-sign Zach Collins if you need to, if you want to provide more of that, or you can leave a roster spot open going into the season where Bryson Graham may want to leave some flexibility with that roster in case if a trade does pop up. I think it fits so much there. And when you look at the pairing together, it works because if you're not overloading one position, you're providing structure for your rookies without blocking them. Grimes helps Wilson and Swain develop offensively while still providing a more of a defensive presence next to Josh Giddey at the 2 position. He gives them space. He gives them a slasher. He gives somebody that can run in transition. He'd be a secondary ball handler as well in a lot of situations for the Bulls. And Landale just helps be the backup big that you need. He helps Caleb Wilson develop. He helps provide a different style of center out there from what Nic Claxton does. And he doesn't prevent anything as far as your development as well. And I think if these both guys fit under Tiago Splitter, what he does. Tiago Splitter likes those quick decision makers, right? He's talked about that, those quick decision makers that you have. Structured freedom, right, is the name of the offense under Tiago Splitter. Quentin Grimes helps with that. Landale gives them a backup big as well who can set screens, who can pop, who can pass, and help keep the offense from clogging up some as well. So I think that, and then when you look at the Bryson Graham fit, both fit that direction without fighting. And that's really what you want to do with these free agent acquisitions. Everything doesn't have to be a home run, but you want to find guys that fit your direction, that don't fight against your direction, and it also kind of preserves cap space in a way because you can align those contracts with Modest's extension, with Josh Giddey maybe needing another extension, Noah Essengay if they earn it, and then that way that gives you some more freedom in their extensions as well as how you can continue to build out the roster once you have those guys under contract, right? So I love it for that aspect too. Grimes brings the size and defense at the guard position. Landale brings physicality of front court depth. And I think this is that neither one blocks any of your long-term development for Caleb Wilson, Dailyn Swain, Modest Buzelis, Leonard Miller, Noah Essengay. It blocks none of your development for those guys as well. And even though I'm not a part of this crowd, even for my Rob Dillingham truthers, it doesn't necessarily get in the way of that either. If the Bulls decide that Rob Dillingham is somebody they still want to invest that time in developing with as well. So I like that. Now, the biggest concern in this just comes about the price, right? If Quentin Grimes gets too close to $18 to $20 million per year, that's where the Bulls are going to have to ask themselves whether it's is he a long-term answer Or is he just a strong role player for now? And if you want to pay that price, now maybe you do it on a shorter term. And then with Landale, the biggest thing is what does the trademark or the free agent market competition looks like for him? A lot of teams need backup bigs. That's at a premium there. Hell, we just saw Yusuf Nurkic signed for $11 million per. So there you go. And if Jock Landale gets above $10 million, I do think that you may want to start looking at cheaper alternatives there. But overall, I like this pairing a lot for the Bulls. Grimes is the priority in me. He directly fixed a lot of shooting and the defensive needs there. Landale is a practical big man that gives the Chicago Bulls backup center depth and shooting without getting in the way of Caleb Wilson, or Nic Claxton or anything like that. He actually supplements those guys really well. I think of this. They're not flashy signings, and every free agent signing doesn't need to be flashy, but they do make the Bulls' new direction and current roster make sense. Grimes gives them spaces the floor for them. Josh Giddey spaces the floor for Josh Giddey, Caleb Wilson, all those guys. And Landale gives Tiago Splitter the backup center with the style that he likes. He can set screens, can shoot a little bit, and it doesn't force anything as well. If you can get both between 20 and 25-ish million between the two of them, I think that is a really good signing for the Chicago Bulls, and it's a really smart use of your cap space and allows you to use your bird rights to keep one of the other guys on this team as well if you want some big depth. So I love it. I think it makes a lot of sense for the Chicago Bulls. We'll see if anything like this happens today. For all I know, I could post this video, and then Quentin Grimes could announce that he signed somewhere else, and then it's all pointless, an hour after me posting the video. So, doing videos like this always can come back to bite, especially in free agency, because things can happen so quick in free agency and turn so quick in free agency that you just never know the way that it's going to go. But I like this pairing. I like this pairing a lot. Before I get out of here, though, I do want to talk a little bit about the Peyton Watson talk, right? There's been a lot about the Peyton Watson thing, and a lot of Bulls fans still hold on to the Peyton Watson and the Bulls potentially going after. Now, we know that we've heard that the Bulls could make an offseason target of Peyton Watson all the way dating to last year. And, some even talking about a trade target, right? But I think now you have to evaluate where this Bulls team is right now, right? And while Peyton Watson would bring defense, athleticism, weak side shot blocking, really solid juice in transition as well. When you look at that, he fits the Bryson Graham profile of long, physical, developmental, that wing profile that he likes. But I think when you look at it, the situation has changed. Peyton Watson is not a shooting guard. I know he's listed as a guard on ESPN, but I hear to burst your bubble. Peyton Watson, over the course of his career, has only played 9% of his total career minutes at the shooting guard position. That's it. Last year, during his breakout season, he played 84 of his minutes between the small forward and power forward. 84% of his minutes. So, and it's just, it does not fit where the Bulls are right now. Here's the thing, right? If the Bulls were to go out and get Peyton Watson, I'm not sitting here saying, hey, it's a bad signing. I do have some questions in regards to it, because Peyton Watson, while shooting the ball 41% from three last year, it wasn't on volume. It was less than 4 3-pointers per game. The Bulls need shooting more than they need a star upside swing on Peyton Watson. We already got two players at Peyton Watson's best positions already on the roster that now you're trying to develop in Dailyn Swain and Caleb Wilson. That's just my personal opinion. Can the Bulls afford him? Yeah, technically they can still afford him. They take all their cap space remaining, but yes, technically they can still afford him. And we know that Denver is right up against that cap limit that they like to be in, and that's why this is even a conversation, right? But I think overall is that, we have to adjust our thinking as the roster changes, right? And you better be very confident in Peyton Watson as a shooter, because again, 41% sounds really great. On 4 attempts, that's just not value. Now, if you think that he can keep up a really good percentage on higher volume, great. But then the minutes thing, I know that people think of him as a guard. He has played more forward, power forward and small forward, than shooting guard for his career, literally. This is a example of ESPN not updating their actual information based off what the NBA is actually doing, right? So I think that that's a part of it that you have to look at too. Like that role, the best role for him is not a role that the Bulls readily have available. And do not even get me started on the starting Modest at the 2 crowd, because come on now. Let's stop that. I know he played a little bit at the 2 last year when our roster was all in disarray, but come on now. Let's stop that, right? So again, Peyton Watson would cost a lot. And not to say that he's not worth it. He is as a player, but I just think where the Bulls are right now with what they need to develop, it should be more about positions that complement, not trying to figure it out. This is not a space where you want to be like, damn, we got Swain, Modest, Noah, Peyton Watson. We got all these guys. They'll figure it out long term. Like that can get in the way of development when you don't have to. It'd be different if you already had some of those guys on the roster and then Caleb Wilson and Dailyn Swain were the best on the board and you took that and was like, we'll just figure it out then. This would be putting yourself in a position that you don't have to be in, where you can find players that better supplement and add to the development of what you already have going on here. And that's kind of my focus in free agency. Bryson Graham's focus may be different, right? Like I said, not going to knock anybody who wants the talent of Peyton Watson. Not going to knock that, because Peyton Watson had a breakout last year, still very young. You saw how much the defense of the Denver Nuggets slipped when he wasn't available in the playoffs last year. So he's a player that definitely impacts winning. You can't deny that. But sometimes you just got to look at the fit part of it. And do not even get me started on the Jonathan. If you are coming to this video to ask me why I didn't talk about Jonathan Kuminga, I hate you. And I hate everything that you stand for, because what? No, I don't actually hate you. But like real talk. And that's just where I kind of stand with it. You guys can always, as always, let me know how you feel down below. What do you want to see from the Chicago Bulls today when free agency opens? Let me know that down below. How do you feel about the pairing of Quentin Grimes and Jock Landale and what it can mean for this team? Drop your thoughts down in the comment section down below. Make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel as well. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode or an upload. You can follow us at Bull Central Pod on every social media platform. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullcentralpod@gmail.com. And lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the #1 spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, and that's thanks to you, lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See you right if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation